Hey everyone, Anthony I. Tano here, the internet's busiest music nerd. I hope you're doing well. And it's time, I think, for a very significant exclusive conversation that came as a result of a pretty big video that we did on this channel recently where I ranked and tiered out all of the major music streaming platforms available to you today. Something we did on the channel because as we have done more coverage of crapping on how awful Spotify is, the most popular music streaming platform out there, we've been getting more and more questions about, Anthony, what service should I be using instead? What other services are out there? And what other sort of aspects of music streaming should I be considering when choosing a different service? Now, this video actually got more of a response than I thought it would from inside and outside of the industry, because I actually have gotten some companies reaching out, asking to have a conversation or do some kind of follow-up, which is kind of weird because it has me feeling like my opinions might actually matter for once. But anyway, one of the companies that reached out in the midst of all of this actually has been Deezer. And them specifically, I was curious to have a conversation with because they are one of the few streaming platforms out there currently that have actually taken a position on AI music. They are currently trying to tag and label any songs on the platform that happen to be AI generated so users know what they are listening to. So yeah, I was curious as to how and why they've gone about doing that, and was also curious about the company's general ethos when it comes to paying artists, since stream payouts are also a really huge topic in the music industry. And interestingly enough, I didn't get handed some random PR person to talk to. Who I talked with for this conversation was actually the company's CEO, Alexis Lanternier, who basically answered all my questions about not only artist payouts on the platform today, but AI music and its proliferation in the streaming age. So let's get into that conversation now. Let's begin with some quick baseline questions, just to kind of like get a general sense of Deezer as a platform. If you have a ballpark off the top of your head, like how large exactly is the Deezer user base currently? The people you're seeing use the platform on a regular basis, and how many sort of accounts, I guess, broadly are on the platform?
Yes, of course. So Deezer is one of the pioneer of the streaming era. It started 17 years ago. Was born and raised in France. It's now 10 million subscriber, so paying subscriber, and roughly 1 million monthly active user that are using the free service. So basically, the first kind of independent platform, if you don't count the big guys, basically.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And obviously the reason that we're talking today is that, or at least part of the reason is that Deezer has taken a pretty strong public stance on AI music being actively tagged and labeled on the platform. It's a topic that I've been talking about regularly on my channel and just kind of the streaming industry in general. To sort of start kind of wading into that topic, when exactly did you guys start to notice not AI music burgeoning as a trend, but it starting to become a bit of a presence on the platform itself? Like, how exactly did you guys come to, I guess, realize the size or scope of the amount of AI music that was being uploaded to Deezer on presumably a regular basis?
No, it's a good question. How do we start there? I think it's mostly the commitment that we have on detecting fraud. One of the big topic, in the streaming industry. We can talk more about that later, but it's the fact that we have 70% of our subscription cost that goes to right holder, and then you have to define to who do you give that money. And a lot of people are trying to gain the system and take some money out of that pool. And there, for a long time, being a lot of fraud, we usually identify around 8% of the stream being fraud. And in that work to identify fraud, what we saw probably 2 years ago or 2024, mostly, is that people were uploading more and more songs. So before it was, if I look at 2021, 2022, we had 150,000 songs uploaded every week on the platform. Now we are more around 1 million. So we saw a massive increase of song coming. And as a result, fraud being a bit more difficult to spot. And so we identified one angle, which was actually the fraudster to be able to generate so many songs to try to gain the system. We're using apps that enable you, like Suno, to create with just one prompt. In a few seconds, enables you to create a song. And that's how we came to build a tool that enable us to identify all the songs that are being created by all those type of apps. And so the tool that we built was ready end of 2024. And we started to identify all the songs like beginning of 2025. We were in public about it. It was roughly around 10% in January this year. So 10% of the upload we were able to identify. And it was 18% in May. And now it's just announcing to you, by the way, it's the first time, it's up to 28%. So it's really increasing massively. It's around 30,000 songs every day that are uploaded to our platform that are coming right from those apps.
Oh, okay. So wait a second. I want to rewind a second because I think that was a pretty significant statistic there. You're talking about this transition from 2023 into 2024. And in that time, just this exponential increase in the amount of songs that are being uploaded on a weekly basis on the platform.
Yeah. So in 2022 was 150,000 songs per week uploaded on the platform. 2025, 3 years.
Yeah.
1 million times 6.
Okay.
In just 3 years.
And you're attributing that increase mostly to AI, or is it just a part of a broader trend of people just uploading more music to the internet, just personally?
That's a good question. A big chunk of that is AI, clearly, because now we can see, almost 30% of it is 100% coming from those apps. At least that's what we are able to identify. Probably there is other factor into it. I think the fact that overall there is more tool to create music clearly lower the bar to be an artist and to create song. And so that's a general trend, I think, of more tools enabling the song creation.
Got it. And just to sort of, in your own sort of view and experience here, you brought up, or we brought up AI. And when you initially talked about it being uploaded onto the platform, you spoke about it specifically in the context of it being used as a tool to kind of like game the Deezer system and potentially sort of like, make a profit off of, I guess, just uploading so much music to the platform, just this proliferation of AI. In your view, from what you've been seeing from these AI uploads, artists, quote unquote, and various accounts, does all of this engagement seem to be fraudulent in nature, the vast majority of it, or do you come across people and accounts who sort of genuinely seem to believe in their hearts in some way, shape, or form, like, no, I'm a real artist, I'm just using this platform to do this, and this is me like expressing myself?
It's a very interesting question.
I see. You're trying not to laugh there. You're trying not to offend the AI artists out there. It's okay. You can laugh. This is a safe space. It's okay.
I think it's a very interesting question and very important one. What do we define as art? I think first thing, and that's a no-brainer, is we have solution to identify what is fraud. We have solution to identify what is 100% AI generated, meaning coming from those apps. What we see that 70% of those songs that were uploaded were then linked to fraudulent activity. So we see a very clear link between I'm fully coming from those apps and I have a fraudulent behavior. And the fraudulent behavior, just so that everybody knows, is basically they upload a song, then they have fake account that triggers some streams to try to game the system of playlists.
So they're like botting the songs. They're having the songs be streamed through some other sort of like third platform party, as you say, something fake, fraudulent.
And we flag those accounts. And so as a result, we're able to find that 70% of the 100% AI generated song are fraudulent. So it still leaves you to 30%, right? That doesn't seem to be fraudulent, but it still tells you that the massive majority of it is fraudulent.
Got it. So you have those 30% of AI artists whose heart is really into it. They're putting their soul into it.
Possibly.
Okay, possibly. We're not gonna. We can't really read their minds. We can't tell. So you're talking about some of these platforms that people are generating this music from, and maybe this is something we'll dig into later. But when you're talking about this AI generated music, what's being tagged as AI generated music generally is just music that is being wholly generated through these platforms. Like no, from what I guess you may or may not detect, additional sort of like, human, I guess what you might want to say is, I don't know, interference, creativity, additions to the music that's being generated anyway, I suppose. When you're talking about these platforms that people are generating this music off of, how exactly, because obviously every person can't go over who's working at the company, go over through all of these songs personally and just say, oh, this is AI, this is not, this is AI, this is not. What sort of tools and what have you are you guys using on the back end to be able to sort of pick this stuff up instantaneously and, tell what is what without having to waste, thousands of man hours on having somebody listen to every single song and determine it that way?
Yes, it's 1 million song every week. So indeed, that's not possible.
Right.
The specificity of Deezer is that we have a R&D team for the past 10 years working on AI, because AI was a great tool for us for a long time to create the recommendation system. And we have been working on, improving our ability to filter the catalog, to fight against fraud. So all that team doing research and development is able, have built tools around catalog analysis and recommendation. So what they have built is a solution which is a little bit like, fighting fire with fire, meaning fighting using AI solution to be able to detect AI. So basically it's generating a lot of song from those apps. And then with machine learning, you can identify pattern. Basically, those apps have some kind of AI generative engine, and those things create a small pattern in the audio files that you can track. And so we identify those, knowing that they update very regularly. So it's a little bit of work to keep up, obviously, but that's something that we have automated. And then based on that, we can identify a score of what percentage of the song seems to be AI generated. And then I'm not going to go into all the secret sauce, of course, but we're basically trying to be a bit conservative, to not create too many false positives, and to allow artists that wants to partially use AI, as long as we believe that there is some part of it that is creative, and we know it's not all the album and all the discography of the artist that is AI. We think it's fine. So we kind of define a score, and below, if the score is too high, meaning there's too much that seems to be all created 100% by AI, that's when we start to flag the song or the album basically as being AI generated.
When you're talking about some of these patterns that are turning up in this AI generated music that are being detected through what tools you guys have created on the platform, are these like general patterns that are recognizable across all AI music, or are they specific to the platforms that they're coming from? Like, oh, this is a Suno type pattern, this is a UDO type pattern.
And just to be clear, this is not pattern you can hear, right?
It's something the AI or automation itself is recognizing.
It's just in the audio track that you can see there is tons of signals, and in all those signals there will be some specific pattern. They will be all linked not only to the specific app, but to the specific version of the app. So each time they update their software, we'll have to retrain the whole thing to catch the new sound coming from that.
You talk about some of these primary platforms, like again, Suno and UDO, that you're having to detect these patterns specifically from. Are there, I don't know, without I'm trying to think of how to phrase this because obviously I don't want to like open a can of worms here per se, but like in your experience, without maybe coming up with a laundry list, are there other competing burgeoning platforms out there as well that you guys are right now working to, or even to some degree struggling to detect because it's different, it's new, we haven't sort of like, had a whole ton of songs from this particular app uploaded from there yet, and we're still sort of like recognizing whenever those patterns are?
Honestly, for now, the technology works pretty well. It's pretty easy to onboard per se a new app. The usage is pretty concentrated, which means the top guys are probably doing a good job because it's pretty concentrated in terms of what we can see in terms of song coming. They are mostly coming from the same app.
Yeah, so basically like they've promoted themselves so well that most of the AI generation is being already concentrated to just a handful of small companies.
But adding a new one is not very complex, and the tools that we have built works for any of them.
Got it. Okay. So, moving from here as far as like the company philosophy, because again, this is part of the reason that we're having this conversation in the first place. You guys are detecting this stuff, you're realizing that it's on the platform, you're seeing how much of it is being uploaded. And, you're also picking up on, these instances of fraud as a result of the tracks being placed on the platform and then being botted. And I'm sure like, all stream platforms are sort of seeing and experiencing this on some level. But to my knowledge, and, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like Deezer is the only, or at least the loudest thus far as major streaming platforms go, to come out and label this stuff and warn listeners and make them aware more than they would be on another platform of when they're running across AI generated music. What made you guys decide to take that extra step that some other companies right now, I guess, just haven't so far?
It's a very excellent question. And I cannot talk for the other, obviously. So for us, it was, again,
just the reason you did it.
No, it was identifying fraud. And then we thought our tool was working well. And so there is two reasons. One, we wanted to check that our tool is really good. And second, it was an ask from our user. We actually survey our user and we say, hey, do you want to know? Are you interested in that? And that was the kind of the two reasons. First, by tagging it, we have a lot of checks. A lot of people are checking on different platforms, an artist doing well on other platform and being tagged as AI for us. They are reaching out to us and saying, some of them are saying, hey, it's not AI. Why did you put that? And we had 60 claims on this since June. We thoroughly investigated all of them and we were right in all of the cases. So that helped us a lot, making sure that our tool is actually good. And we had very, very positive feedback from a lot of users. Actually, a lot more users joining the platform since then. We've seen a significant influx of subscribers. And so it comforted us in the fact that this was the right decision.
Okay. I want to dig further into that, but to sort of like dig specifically into that comment that you just made, you guys have had some back and forths and responses from users or artists who have debated the claim that something that they uploaded was AI, and you guys double checked and made sure that it was. To your knowledge, nothing has been labeled as AI thus far on the Deezer platform that didn't actually end up being AI?
Not yet. No.
Okay. But again, was there something for you personally, or sort of, a general sense in I don't know, the boardroom, whatever you want to call it, or, that made you guys initially even begin to ask the question, like, oh, maybe we should ask the users, do they even care about this? Was there something sort of like, in terms of your own personal views as a music fan that made you feel like, this kind of seems like something that, we should take a stance on in some way, shape or form? Because, making sure that users are aware of what they're listening to, it's not exactly a neutral stance per se.
No, I think Deezer DNA is very clearly firm on the fact that Deezer wants to support the music industry. That is something that, we are very loud about. We did a lot of other work in terms of fraud, increasing the payouts, working for a fairer remuneration system with Artist-centric. And so that was also, a big ask from the industry to do something about it. And that was the other reason, that pushed us to say, okay, let's do something about it. That's what the industry wants. That's actually also what the user wants. And so we said, yeah, why not? Let's try it.
Okay. With the tools that you guys have been sort of using to detect this stuff so far, and you talk about like there having to be rebuilds of the system and tweaks that may need to come into play every single time they come out with a new version, and it's being updated every time. With the patterns and progression that you've been watching from your position of AI music so far, do you foresee it reaching a point in the near distant future where it becomes almost undetectable or just much harder to detect than it is currently?
I think there is a risk for sure. I mean, it's very hard to predict, how powerful and where AI generative will lead us. So it's hard to predict. The team is working super hard to keep up with the progress. I think there is also a new solution. I think, to be fair, our current solution is not that complex. We're just generating song and running regression analysis to identify some patterns. That's not that complicated. We can actually do much more complex stuff. We have a tool called Radar that we developed in the past, which enabled to do a map of all the songs that we have, the 100 millions of songs we have in the catalog, and to identify which one is close to which one. And that's also a solution that will help us, we think, in the future too, because when people create songs with AI solution, they tend to be very similar in some sort of way. So we believe there will be, new and more complex solution that will come that will enable us, even if they manage to get rid of those patterns, that will enable us to still identify those songs. And it's, it's going to be a fascinating topic, not only for the music industry. That's why we want to keep investing in this, because identifying AI will be a core topic for a lot of industry in the coming future.
I think another kind of essential pattern to potentially observe here is, as you were kind of saying over the last several years, just seeing the sheer amount and increase of this stuff being uploaded on a regular basis. Do you foresee in the near future a paradigm where half or maybe even most of the songs that are getting uploaded are AI generated? And could that potentially lead to a point where, I don't know, you as a company have to say, I don't know, there's only so much server space we can allow for this stuff. Like, we have to start turning it away or doing something, because I'm sure that to just allow this to openly flood any platform with no protections or guardrails whatsoever can make a pretty huge mess.
100%. Yeah, that's something we're starting to think about. One option that will solve the problem will be to start, charging a one-off cost for any song upload. That would be a simple solution, like, just a small one, because the business model of, trying to upload a lot of songs will disappear as soon as you start charging, even $1 per song upload. So I think that will be maybe a solution to put in place if that become, unmanageable.
Yeah, I mean, forcing these people to actually pay to torture all of us with this stuff, I mean, it might actually curb it a little bit, So I mean, it's worth thinking about. So currently, right now, the platform has a certain position when it comes to like labeling this stuff. What is Deezer's stance currently? And, I feel like you've addressed this to an extent, talking about how people are kind of using AI music to sort of game the system by uploading it and then having it be botted. And, obviously you guys are kind of picking up those patterns. But currently, what is Deezer's stance on just, monetizing AI music in general currently? Is it monetized on the platform just like anything else is? Like, if the new Velvet Sundown album goes platinum, just off of Deezer streams, are they getting paid just the same as any other artist would at this moment?
So the first step is now they are all removed since, I think, Feb, all removed from playlists and recommendation. That prevent them to kind of manage by tricks to gain the system and to get some additional stream because, and that's for now the stance we took because, if by chance it become very successful and people want to listen to a song, they should be able to find it. And so for now, if people find it and listen actively to it, they will actually get monetized. But we are preventing the fraud by making sure they not get recommended into playlist and recommendation.
Okay. So, I mean, again, it's monetized like anything else, but people actually have to go out and actively look for it.
Yes.
But still, with that being said, like, have you guys seen on the back end, because I'm sure just like any other platform, you're able to observe all sorts of insane, crazy engagement metrics in terms of like how many times is a song played, is it skipped, how far do people listen into it, so on and so forth. Since labeling a lot of music on the platform as AI, since you have you guys been able to see on the back end if that's kind of created any sort of like pattern or engagement differences? Like, once something is labeled AI, have you observed people listen to it less? Is it less exposure time? Is it less clicks? Like, has it impacted the amount of engagement these songs get generally once, sort of users see a clear label on it?
We didn't get the data yet on this because the problem is it's a new topic. And we reacted quite fast. So before it became big, we started to label it. So it's more, qualitative data. It's like, survey to user. You were mentioning this that Sandan. I think the impact it had on people that were, oh, listen to that song. And then, oh, actually it's AI. And then the reaction before and after is so different that the feeling based on those qualitative data is that it will significantly impact when people know. But mass data we don't have because it's just so new and so recent that it's not significant enough.
Okay. I mean, if you ever feel like reaching out down the road to sort of update me on that, if that is, something you guys get more information on a few months down the road, that'd be great. I know you can't speak to the mindset or business philosophy of, your competitors. But I wanted to know for you guys personally, are there sort of financial downsides to going about embracing or sort of reacting to AI in the way that Deezer currently is? I mean, I feel like when it comes to, for example, the, AI conversation specifically in regards to Spotify, there's a lot of discussion in terms of like how much Spotify may or may not financially benefit from allowing it to proliferate in playlists and allowing it to, sort of like fill up people's algorithmic recommendations. Like, is there, from your perspective as somebody who runs a streaming platform, like, is there a financial incentive to allowing AI to essentially just proliferate on the platform and, inhabit playlists and inhabit people's recommendation algorithms? I ask, because again, just from your perspective, it would be good to get an understanding of, what exactly like are maybe streaming platforms incentives and not kind of like curbing it in the way that you guys are maybe.
Yeah, I think there is two reasons. One is the cost of doing what we do. So, if we were doing nothing, there will be no negative impact for us because the way it works that we have a pool of royalty that we give away. So if it's not going to the right artist, but it's going to AI, in a sense, you could decide not to care about it. And because we have a DNA of supporting the industry, that's why we invested in that team, in all the server we have to build those solutions to catch AI. So that's one solution. They may just not care. The second answer is, we roughly pay 70% of the subscription we pay to rights holder. The reality is, though, it's a slightly higher percentage when it's real artists with, real label representing them than when it's AI slop, very clearly. So you could argue that having a higher share of AI slop will actually reduce the percentage you will pay. So it's actually benefiting your profit.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I imagine, to sort of like keep track of it, there's like probably a lot of man hours and maybe an expansion of an entire department,
Of course.
just to sort of like keep track of it because it is becoming such a thing. Um, and with this having gone as far as it has thus far, I don't know, this may be sort of like some desperate hope that people are expressing, but it seems there's also sort of like a lot of discussion around sort of this being a bubble of some sort, you know what I mean? And it's just sort of like a fad trend, like, I don't know, NFTs or something like that. From your perspective, and obviously, you're investing a lot of money in sort of like tracking this stuff and keeping tabs on it and, trying to be as aware of it as possible. Do you think there is sort of, validity to that hope, validity to that claim that like, AI music is going to be something that kind of comes and goes without, much of a memory once it passes? Or is it like, really here to stay and it's going to continue increasing and intensifying?
Yeah, I think I can relate to the fact that it's, not as scary as some people may say, at least in the short term horizon, meaning that the song generated by AI for now don't generate massive streaming. Again, if it's not fraud, if it like, generate genuine user listening to them, and even less obviously once they are told it's AI. So meaning that people actually want real artists most of the time, and generally, I would say. And so, given the current user behavior, the reaction they have to I would say in the short midterm, I don't see any big risk for the industry with the current solution that have been created. So I think that's one way to answer your question. Then, what it will become, how the mindset will evolve, it's very hard to say, of course.
Maybe that's an interesting point to dig into on just to kind of finish things up. In your view, as somebody who's kind of like observing the metrics in a way that like nobody else is on a regular basis, are there aspects of AI music or its proliferation that you feel like are maybe overinflated in terms of like, oh, this is dangerous, oh, this is a dark time, da 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 da? Like, not to say are there benefits to AI music, but is it maybe more of a neutral thing than it is a dangerous thing?
I think you have all the benefit of fun. I think a lot of people are creating fun song, creating song for weddings, for anniversary, for their family. I think all that is probably good. One dark thing, which is still small, but we see spark from time to time, is the fact that with AI generated song, you can talk about dark topic that nobody will like to acknowledge being created by them. We have a few racist songs that are sparking from time to time, nationalist song that have made the news, I think, very recently in Germany. And that's much easier to do. You don't have to have a name. You cannot be catched. Nobody can recognize who you are. Mm-hmm. And so that's, one of the negative aspects, I would say, that can be generated by this. We still see that as very, very limited. It's very once a month maybe, but that could be seen as a dark development potential.
Yeah, I mean, there is something about sort of like music that has a certain, as like power to go super viral. And if one happens to use AI, I mean, I've seen AI songs about me. Negative songs, obviously. And, people who have certain opinions about my reviews or whatever, may see them and react to them and be like, oh yeah, I hate that guy too, whatever. But, music does have a certain power to it to sort of like spread messages and ideas more effectively than maybe a simple sentence might in certain contexts. So, in that right, it is true. There's a potential to sort of like pack a certain opinion or ideology that people align with that may be heinous or maybe sort of radical in some way, and then putting that into an AI generated song in a matter of minutes, and then sort of like, giving it more boost and more power and maybe legitimacy than it would have had otherwise. Because I do feel like even if it is AI generated, people do see certain messages and ideas carrying a certain weight if somebody's put in the effort to like, oh, well, this isn't a song, it's this person wouldn't mean it so much if they just said it, but they put in all the effort to put it in a piece of music. Moving on to another topic, let's talk about just kind of artist payouts in general, because, aside from just kind of AI in the music streaming age, another huge topic is just how much money artists are making from music streaming generally. And, just to kind of get a quick baseline on that, where exactly does Deezer sit on that topic in comparison with its competitors, as far as, just making sure artists are adequately paid and how much they're making off of streams on a regular basis?
Yeah, well, I think what is very important to understand is how the streaming business model works. It's basically there is a subscription cost per month, and then roughly 70% goes to the rights holder. And then the big topic is how do we allocate this 70%? And we believe it's more important to discuss that than to discuss the payout per stream, because the problem with the payout per stream metric is that it's a simple one. So I understand why it's appealing, but the reality is it's massively impacted by the average age of the user on a platform. Basically, what you see that 20 years old, on average, they listen to 100 minutes per day of music. 50 years old, they listen to 20 minutes per day on their platform. And so if you happen to have a older age group, but the same subscription and the same model, your payout can be double, triple of another platform. And so if we just rank a platform by the payout per stream, you may have a bias to basically rank higher platforms that are caring for older age group, which is not bad per se, but maybe not the best way to rank. And I could argue even you could give some credit to the platform that enable young people to pay, because they are the most likely to do piracy. So you could actually argue that it's better to bring younger audience to subscribe and to pay for music. So for me, that's an important thing to have in mind. And then if you want, understanding what different platforms do about, the payout and maximizing the payout for the artist, the most important thing is, how do you take this 70% and you allocate it to the right person? So the first thing is focusing on music. Just having all the payout focusing on the music and not other type of media. That's a big way to maximize the payout to music artists. What we did recently with the Artist-centric at Deezer is that we remove all the noise. So, Rain on the Roof, thing that is not instrumentals. We just remove it from the pool and replace it with AI-generated song that are not counting, that, enable us to get more money to the artist. All the fight against fraud that we discussed about, it's roughly 8%. So it's not, meaningless. It's like a few billions per year. And finally, I think the other big topic is, the having no payola system, making sure there is no sponsored song where you pay less commission, all those kind of things, because that reduces the payout to the artist. So all those things, are, I think, more important as a platform to make sure most of the money goes to the real artist, basically, and more important to me than the payout per stream.
So what you're essentially saying here is that, there are other sorts of workarounds or alternatives to merely just focusing on the payout per stream to, increase the amount of money that artists are getting off of their works, through the platform, through back-end adjustments, or just kind of focusing on other ways of kind of, making sure that the percentage pool isn't being sapped away from by other factors.
Exactly. I think what I'm trying to say that, payout per stream was a bit, when we were buying CDs, we were not tracking how many times the buyer was listening to the CD. We didn't care, right? It was, if they were listening 1,000 times to the CD, good for them. If they were listening two times to the CD, good for them. Nobody cared about cost of the CD divided by the number of streams.
Right.
And what I'm saying is that it's a bit the same, right? It's like if a platform is catered to very young people, they are paying $12, but they are listening to 1,000 streams per month. It's not bad. It's not bad. At least we have having young people on the platform paying. And if another platform is just catering for all the people that are just listening to 20 songs per month, it's not per se a great thing. They're just catering for all the people. So what I'm saying is that this is not a great metric to measure how a platform is doing good for the music industry.
Okay.
And what I'm saying is that there is other things that can be done, which are harder to track with just a single metric, which is, that's why we need to discuss and explain. But I think indeed trying to make sure that the money that's basically, again, subscription, $12 across the board per month, 70% goes to the right holder. How do we make sure the 70% goes to real artists that are creating music by removing things that are not music, removing noise, removing fraudster, all that work that is very important, that Deezer is very committed on for the past few years, is the most important.
Okay, so it presents an interesting question. I mean, you talk about yes, there is like kind of a valid question there in terms of some of our accounts are listening to 100 minutes of music within this span of time, and some of our accounts are listening to about half, but they're still paying the same amount of money every month for that subscription. And with those variants, like you do have to wonder, like, how are we making sure that this money is going to the right places? Because the people are listening to half of the amount of music as some other people might over the course of the month. I mean, obviously they still value and care about the artists that they're listening to the music of as much as some of those younger users who are maybe listening to music more often. So how are we making sure that support is being spread around effectively? I mean, if that's like, I guess, kind of a concern, why not try to reinvent the pool royalty model altogether? I mean, it seems like what you're kind of highlighting there is a flaw with the model itself. And yet it seems like so many streaming services function off of this business model.
And that's a fascinating topic. So that's what Deezer embarked since 2022 with launching the artist-centric model. So this one is a bit complex, but I think you're pointing to a very, very important topic here. The previous model was market-centric, meaning we take all the stream, we take all the money, and then we allocate, if you had 1% of the stream, you get 1% of the money pool.
Right.
And to your point, this is very unfair, because if you have one person listening to 1,000 songs and a neighbor is just listening to 10 songs, but they pay the same thing, then most of the money of the second person will go to the artist of the first person. And that's pretty much unfair. I think that's pretty clear. And that's something that Deezer led, launched with Universal Music, by the way, at the beginning. It was artist-centric. And the idea was to move from market-centric to user-centric, step by step. User-centric, meaning your subscription goes to the artist that you listen to.
Right.
And so we are halfway there. It takes a bit of time of convincing, of negotiation with all the stakeholders. But right now we can say we are, halfway there. So at least half of your subscription costs will go to the artists you listen to, and the objective is to move to 100% in the coming months.
I'm just trying to think of like how the math would look as a result of that. If that shift were to happen in terms of the business model, because just thinking of it in terms of like very basic black and white numbers and presentations, if I'm listening to, or we have 3 artists on the platform: Sabrina Carpenter, Charlie XCX, Chappell Roan. Sabrina Carpenter is getting 50% of all the streams. Charlie XCX is getting 25% or 30%, and Chappell Roan's getting the rest. Would the business model be that varied if we're talking about divvying that money up according to who's getting what amount of streams, who's getting the most, who's getting the least, versus who has as many users? Does a business model where you're getting 50% of the streams differ from a business model where you have 50% of the users listening to you?
It will be significant, maybe not among those artists. I think the biggest impact, again, is going to be artists that are listened by older people versus younger people. Mm-hmm. Because again, the older people tend to listen less in terms of number of stream per month. So if you're an artist with older people listening to you, then this will benefit to you. That's a very generic trend. And the amount can be quite significant for some artists, of course. It all depends on each artist, which is one of the reasons we went step by step and not at one go to make sure that the transition is smooth enough.
Okay. Um, when shifting over to this hypothetical, beta model, while it is true earlier, I think, with you kind of like laying out the way things are working, there's definitely a flaw there in terms of like how money is being generated for songs and artists just based on the amount of times people engage with a specific song, like on a singular sort of basis. But when we're talking about sort of paying artists or paying out for songs and albums based on how many users are engaging with it, not how many times it's being streamed or how many times it's being engaged with on a listening, experience basis. Are we talking about sort of like paying artists or paying out for songs like a flat fee, like, oh, you had this many users listen to you this month, regardless of how many times they listen to you. So we're going to pay you this amount of money per user,
No, it's going to be the same logic.
regardless of whether that person's listened to you one time or 100 times.
No, it's going to be the same logic as market-centric, but on each single user. So one user is paying $12, 70%. Let's say it's $9. Let's say there are 100 streams for the month, that particular user. Let's say as an artist, you get 10 stream, then you will get 10% of the subscription of that user. So you will get 90 cents.
Okay. Yeah. So it's just basically you're divvying up the amount of money that user is bringing into the platform according to what their listening diet was that month, regardless of how much they listen to anything. It's all about the percentage of what they listen to in that span of time. Got it. And so in your experience, there's been a bit of a battle, a discussion, a negotiation, a process to sort of sell rights holders and labels on this market idea instead, on this sort of business model instead? Are they sort of skeptical of doing things this way?
I think overall people tend to agree in the music industry. I think there are vast majorities aligned on the fact that it's more fair. But some will benefit, some will lose a little bit. And so as a result, what you see is that the one who benefit are more eager to join this new model than the one who lose a little bit. And so, it took more time with the one that were not benefiting from it, but we are confident we're going to get there, and we're already halfway there. So we're very confident now that we're going to get there.
I mean, I don't know if this sort of like, spoils the situation or makes moving in this direction more difficult, but like, when we're talking about the who would benefit and who wouldn't, like, who exactly are we talking about? I mean, I think like probably the main concern of most people watching this interview and, maybe just music fans in general are sort of wondering is like, moving toward that model, is that going to take more money out of the pockets of the three major record labels in some way? Will that favor independent artists more? Is that the sort of shift that we would see with a model like this, hypothetically?
Honestly, it's not that simple. It's not focused big label versus independent label. It's much more focused artists with a younger audience versus artists with the older audience, which is why it's quite fair. It's just like there is some people that have young audience streaming like crazy, and this is like disturbing and biased.
Well, and also I guess we could say legacy artists, older artists whose back catalog is sort of like, their classics are just years and years behind them at this point. I mean, often they do kind of like complain about how little there is in streaming for them. I think potentially, and you can correct me here if this is like maybe an incorrect assessment, but I think it does kind of like, if everyone were to move in that direction, it does kind of potentially change the current musical consumption paradigm, because with how things work currently, based on like, it's however many streams you're getting on the latest, newest, hottest thing, it does create a situation where I think for a lot of new artists, it generates this intense pressure to always be coming out with new music all the time, regardless of how good or interesting or quality it is, because, regardless of how good your back catalog may be, it's not going to get as many streams as either the newest thing that you come out with immediately or the newest thing other artists are coming out with immediately. Allowing users who are maybe not as young and are listening to music maybe with a little less frequency, and giving them the ability to make sure that their subscription is going toward albums that they actually care about and maybe have been with them for years, that they're not listening to obsessively because they've been a part of their lives for a very long time, could potentially allow artists to maybe relax a little bit more on those records of theirs that have been successful and have longevity. It seems like a model like that would actually maybe incentivize creating music that people might want to listen to again 3 years from now, as opposed to, just discuss very intensely for a couple of weeks once it's been dropped.
I think that's right. I think the other benefit is that it will value the work of artists that is focusing on, improving the life of their fan. So it's going to be much more about, how deep of a relationship you create with your fan versus, being streamed like crazy. Because if you have, fan base that is very strong, that really listen to you and maybe a bit more exclusively to you, then you will get more money than if you're just, being streamed by, widely a lot of people, but not with the same intensity and the same link. So I think it will value all those kind of artists that are investing time and that love to create relationship with their fan.
Yeah, it won't be a model that seemingly will be as centered around just kind of like the casual listener. It seems like there's a lot of drive in the music industry and just on social media in general to engage the lowest common denominator of people as much as you possibly can. And this, through virality, this and trend that. And this could, again, create more of an opportunity for artists and fans to have a bit more of a, you already said, like sort of like a more intimate connection, and that isn't simply just based around the intensity of streaming a single song or a hit over and over and over and over. I guess like another way to sort of like put it is this could also shift pretty intensely. I feel like the way that the streaming industry currently engages with songs that are long. Because it sort of seems like, it's currently the way you max out like monetarily on an album is by putting as many songs as you possibly can on it and have a lot of those songs just be as short as possible so that, instead of like racking up 10 streams or 7 across an album that has maybe a 47-minute runtime, you're maybe getting 23, 25, 27 on a record that's maybe an hour or just over an hour once you throw the deluxe tracks on. This model for a long time has screwed over artists that write songs that are longer than 10 minutes, and if you're kind of divvying things up based on percentage of time spent listened to a particular artist via each account, that does create less pressure to try to, just generate as many short songs as possible.
That's a very fair point. That's also something that needs to be fixed.
Were there any other sorts of considerations that you guys were kind of taking into account when moving in this direction? That, I mean, it sort of seems like, I don't know, theoretically, part of the reason that you guys are doing this is based around a concern of fairness of who is and who isn't getting, the most of the royalties, based on listening time of each person using each account who are paying the same amount of subscription fees. Are there any other sorts of like metrics that you feel like this way of going about things kind of corrects for theoretically?
Yeah, and I just want to be clear. It's not really in our favor. It's something, we're just paying the same amount of royalty. And we really did that because, again, Deezer DNA is to support the industry. It actually cost us a little bit because during the transition, when the people who benefit take it and the people who don't benefit don't take it, we actually pay a bit more. So I just want to make sure it's clear that it's actually a zero gain for us. The other thing that was part of this change is also to make sure that again, we limit fraud. So typically we have, made some rules so that you get a boost if you have more than 500 different people listening to you, so that we kind of reduce the impact of the streaming farms. If you're searched for, then you get a boost. All those kind of little thing that we discuss with all the industry to make sure that we value the music that people really engage with. So that was the other element that was important in this whole change, and that was valued by the industry. But I think the biggest driver, obviously, is this move from market centric to actually making sure that the subscription that you pay goes to the artist that you listen to.
Mm. If theoretically, because we are kind of talking about like bots and fraud and so on and so forth, yeah, this does kind of like change the way that model kind of works. I mean, not to give anybody sort of like any hints or incentive or anything like that, but like under a model where artists are kind of being paid based on the amount of engagement an account does with a particular album, song, what have you. What exactly would botting or fraud look like under that model instead? Would somebody sort of like have to buy a subscription for every single time they want to pay an artist or something, and then spend 5 minutes listening to that artist, and that kind of technically accounts for 100% of their engagement across a certain span of time, so they would get that subscription money? Like, would somebody, if they wanted to bot an album, have to be sort of like putting in hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of paid subscriptions to sort of like make it seem like something is more popular than it is, or making more money than it is?
Yeah, exactly. So it makes this whole industry irrelevant, because you basically can only get back the money of your subscription minus taxes and commissions. So the fraud business disappear as it used to be. The business that still exists is this business of trying to insert music into playlist and recommendation by having a few accounts that boost them. But as you said, you need much more account now. So that really, really reduce the impact that fraud can have.
Yeah, I mean, this business model may not necessarily be the be all end all or silver bullet that would like end this kind of business practice, but it would certainly like put a lot of these bot farms in a position where they would have to severely overhaul the way that they go about things in order to sort of like create the same kind of impact that they are currently. I guess in your view, as somebody who runs a prominent music streaming platform and on a regular basis, sees this kind of fraud and sees how often it's discussed, across the industry, across music journalistic platforms, in terms of it being a severe issue and a severe problem. In your view, why do you feel like it's something that is talked about more often than it is addressed by the companies like yours that it seems to impact most? Is it just that difficult of an issue to solve, or are there reasons and incentives behind the scenes, in your view, for all these companies to sort of be just dragging their feet on it and just not doing anything?
I think you're exactly right. The problem that there is no incentive. The reason Deezer is doing that is because, again, our DNA is to support the music industry. That's why we are successful. That's because we are supported by the artists and the labels. But we're not making any gain from reducing fraud. And we're probably losing a little bit just because of the cost of a team and the system to identify fraud. And maybe because our commission will be a slightly lower with a fraud song. So I don't think we are benefiting in any way of doing that, beside the impact it has on the industry and the repetition and all those things, which are great. But there is not yet a strong incentive for all the platform to work actively on this, because they are not paying this fraud, basically.
Yeah, no, I mean, I guess like what you say is true. Like, there's clearly or obviously a downside to monetarily to having to invest all of that time and effort and programming, hiring into putting people on that job and on that case to get them to like address the issue and address the problem. But like I guess are there monetary benefits to just allowing it to happen and just ignoring it? I guess is like my question, because, as you say, like the incentive isn't there for them to do anything different. Do you, I guess to kind of like put it bluntly, do you see the lack of a solution or a fix for this from other companies? Is it because they just want to cut corners and putting money into fixing it is just too expensive? Or are there benefits just like allowing the problem to persist?
I couldn't, talk on their behalf. I think there is slight benefit, which is again the percentage you give to rights holder
Hmm.
is higher on songs that are from true artists that are supported by true labels, and AI slop is supported with lower take rate, so you have to pay less to AI rights holder, if I may say. So you probably have a small benefit of letting it happen.
All right. Look, thank you for letting me know everything that you've shared here. And I just want to say I appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you so much, Anthony. I think it's the first time I get so deep and so technical about all those topics that I'm passionate about. So really appreciated you took the time.
No, I appreciate you too. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anthony.
And there you have it. Thank you guys for watching. Let me know down in the comments what you thought about any of this: Deezer, music streaming, AI, anything, even follow-up questions or issues you think might be fitting for a future conversation on this topic. Hit that like, hit that subscribe button, and I will see you in the next one. Anthony Fantano, music streaming forever.